Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Wolverine.com postgame show here from beautiful, spacious, the friendly confines of Wrigley Field, where a football game was played in a baseball stadium and a walk-off win was had, similar to a baseball game. Michigan moves to 8-2 on the season with a 24-22 win over the Northwestern Wildcats, despite 5 turnovers in this game, despite 2 missed field goals, despite what is best described as a cacophony of self-inflicted errors. They found a way. And the biggest positive I think you can pull out of it, because I know we're going to talk a lot of negatives and things that happened in this game, and rightfully so, because we're 10 games into this and a lot of these same issues are still rearing their ugly heads here. But if nothing else, yes, you want to win the football game, and you played yourself into a football game where down a score, your freshman quarterback needed to put a drive together, someone needed to make a play, and it was going to come down to a kick to come from behind. And you did that. You are the reason you had to come from behind. But to, after all of that, rally, find a way to win, that's a growth moment for a young quarterback and a young offense. But a day that, I'm not going to talk about it like it's a loss, but just unacceptable fourth quarter meltdown to get it to that point. But you will take the win. I don't think that anyone's under any pretense this team is any better that they've shown through 10 games, but they are 8-2. They have found a way to survive and advance. They've essentially been in playoff mode since they lost at USC. So that's where they're at right now. And forget 2 weeks from now, a week, you have to play much better football than you did today moving forward. But today you found a way late, even though you made the bed that led to it getting to that point.
So much to take away from this game, and I know we'll get into both sides, but overall, for me, it's, if you would have told me that this team, after we take a look at them after the USC game, let's say, and you say that this team offensively has 5 turnovers, can they beat a Northwestern team with 5 turnovers? I would say no. So with that lens over it, there were some positives. But at the end of the day, I'm having a hard time right now shrugging off that 23 months ago, we were national champions. And today we carried our kicker off the field for a last-second win against a 5-win Northwestern team. And there were some good things that happened, specifically on defense, but even there were some gaps. Offensively, there was some momentum at times. I mean, we're down to, 3rd running back, 4th running back, and with a passing game that goes so stagnant so quickly, to get this win is a good thing. But it is frustrating that at the end of the year, closing into November, that's the best product we have after a bye week. And a lot of evaluation needs to happen as to, is that good enough for seasons moving forward? It's where we are this week, and hopefully we can get a little bit more development before we get to the next 2 games.
We'll talk about all of it, and there is a lot to discuss here. First, I want to say we are brought to you today by our pals over at BRUNT Workwear. Use the promo code Wolverine to get $10 off your first order over at BRUNT workwear.com, or head to bruntworkwear.com/Wolverine. We're also brought to you today. Ryan Van Bergen is brought to you today, courtesy of him and his team over at Blue Lion Fitness. Ryan, we got a noon game in a couple weeks, so it seems like if you're up for it, we'll be back there for one last regular season game, whatever it looks like. But what do you guys have going on there leading into the holidays?
We're definitely ready to host after the Ohio State game and after the week of Thanksgiving, but I feel like everybody kind of goes in to make their deposits, or at least their withdrawals, maybe, to go into the Blue Line classes and get some calories out of the system before this next holiday week hits. This is a really busy week for us. If you've ever been intimidated that maybe you'd be ID'd and someone would watch you very closely, we always are going to check your form. But in this particular week, with the classes being so busy, you might be able to just slide on by and get through your class if that's kind of the vibe you're you're looking for. But regardless of what your experience level is or how familiar you are with group classes, free weights, that type of stuff, our coaches are going to get you through a class. So I highly recommend coming in, burning some calories, even if it's something that might be not your cup of tea typically. If you got some time off, come give us a try.
Absolutely. You guys do great work over there. We're appreciative of the partnership that we've had throughout the season and the post-game shows that you and I have been doing now for, I think this is football season 4 or 5. I think it's 5. So, or at least 4.5. So grateful for that partnership. Thank you, Ryan, for your generosity and your time on that front. Let me start out by saying this, because again, I talked about the come from behind win, talked about what that means for some of the younger pieces. I want to get another positive out of the way in that this atmosphere was incredible. It was better than I could have expected. I got the Cubs hat on. I'm a Tigers fan, but I'm a Chicago Cubs guy. I've always liked them since I was a kid. So this is kind of like a bucket list. I mean, I'll say bucket list post game show. I'm doing, I'm behind home plate at Wrigley Field doing a post game show, and the awesomeness of that is not lost on me. This is a Michigan home game. I think that the crowd was basically, I'm terrible with the percentages, but maybe 70, 75% maize and blue. And they were loud and they did everything they could to, cheer this team on in terms of putting your foot on the gas. And there's a point in this game where, I get it 7-6 at the half. You get it to, you're up by 2 scores heading into the fourth quarter. And you're like, all right, you put another score on the board. Like you're feeling pretty good about this, but the wheels completely fell off in the second half. I feel like I've talked about for weeks that Michigan has avoided a loss in games, avoided the game where Bryce Underwood turns over the ball like crazy, or they turn over the ball like crazy and still win. Now we have 2 of those in a row, which I'm not fond of that trend that's growing. But I think before we get into offense, defense, and obviously taking questions, I know we have super chats as well. We'll clean those up here in a second. I just wanted to get off my chest in terms of Michigan was in this spot once again because there is an entire phase of this game being the special teams, how they're coached, how they line up, missing kicks, fumbling punt returns. The fumble you had at midfield, you finally start cooking running the ball, and then you run a reverse to Andrew Marsh. That gets blown up. You turn over the football. This game spiraled out of control in the fourth quarter because of, by and large, Bryce Underwood in the offense and Jordan Marshall getting hurt, which we'll see what the update on that is. I don't think that looked particularly good in terms of shoulder, upper body injury. But this game was spiraled out of control in the fourth quarter because of things that happened in the fourth quarter. But it was closer than it needed to be because for whatever reason, and this is a coaching staff thing, they play with their food. They don't learn from mistakes. It seems like offensively, sometimes Chip Lindsey, once something starts to work, then they throw the curveball in there. I thought special teams were a disaster until you make the switch to Andrew Marsh. You get the game-winning field goal from Dominic Zavada, but they continue to make repeated mistakes that they're very lucky haven't cost them games yet, but is not helping their case at all. And when we talk about mature responses needed, I don't think there's any more mature response that's needed than from Sherrone and his coaching staff.
The coaching, I think, is the number one takeaway for me, is that after a bye week, you should see a well-oiled, highly executing at a high clip, high efficiency offense, defense, special teams. You should have a game plan and be crisp, sharp, fast. You should be fresh. And you didn't see any of that. Not any of that. I think Wink Martindale and the defense held their own. There's some times where I feel like in coverage we broke down, but I also feel like we're exposed a lot more than we maybe need to be because of where the offense is going and with 5 turnovers. I thought Chip Lindsey tried to install some more. I thought you saw some RPO, which was feast or famine. Early on, we feasted on the RPO. Late in the game, I think Bryce Underwood got maybe overconfident or was trying to overcompensate for some of the mistakes he made. And easy give reads that were 4, 5, 6 yards easy for Kuzdal he was making the throw. And if you were watching the game on the live broadcast, Joel Klatt was kind of going over their coverage and their quarters and how their safeties were coming down to support run. And I mean, that wasn't that hard to pick up on. And Northwestern kind of cat-moused with Chip Lindsey, and they ended up getting those picks. But in general, there were some strides that went forward, but when you have the undisciplined mistakes, there was penalties, there's penalties that weren't called for sure. Not to be that guy, but we got away with some stuff. Those type of things, the miscues on special teams, those are the type of things at week 11 or wherever we're at, after a bye week, with already talking about it in every press conference, we got some things to clean up. I am kind of standing on, okay, it's not clean enough. Like, so now what? And that's kind of where I'm at with the coaching staff.
Producer Megan, I think we have a couple super chats. We'll clean those up here before we break down offense, defense, special teams. There's certainly a lot to go through in each of those phases here. This is from Rip Liddig, who says, Ryan, how did the interior of the defensive line look to you versus the past few games?
The interior of the defensive line has looked consistent, but no dominance. And that's something that I was going to talk about, is Northwestern being a running team. And we've been against some teams that like to run the ball here later in the season. You're waiting for that guy that's going to come and have tackle for losses stack up 2 a game, 3 a game, back-to-back games with tackles for loss. And you just don't see that. And I'm not saying that they played poorly, but I expect more performance metrics from the defensive tackles, especially when you got guys like Ernest Hausman and Barham wreaking havoc. I like that we moved him back to some linebacker in the game today. I just think in general that there's a lack of the big play, a lack of the momentum swinging play from the defensive tackle position, but they all stand in there and they're solid. But I feel like they just come in there and they get B grades, B minus, B plus, B, B minus, B plus, B. And they're just, you're missing that impact player, especially when you come away from having Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant.
That's what's jarring to me. I mean, those guys were so good that there was always going to be kind of a natural drop off. I thought Trey Pierce had a really good game today. I'm excited to go back and watch some of those things. But yeah, Derek Moore's been good. But what's made Michigan's defense as elite as it's been the last couple of years has been that push up the middle. And it's not quite there as consistently as it needs to be for this team right now. Let's start with maybe offense in this game. Despite 7 points at the half, we talked about after the Purdue game, Bryce Underwood wasn't seeing the field well, wasn't making quick decisions. And I think he was 9 for 10 in the first quarter. Him and Andrew Marsh were, Marsh finishes with 12 catches for 189 yards. That was pretty fun to watch. He's kind of turning into one of those non-negotiable strengths for this team. But overall, it's just the untimely mistakes that turn into things that you have to compensate for later in the game. You know, it's again, Jordan Marshall finds a way to run for, I think he finished at 142 yards in this game before he got hurt. You finally get the run game going with him, and you turn the ball over at midfield, and you come down here and you miss what's essentially a chip shot field goal from Dominic Zavada. And that's on him. That's a special teams thing, but you're leaving points on the field, and you're leaving so much potential and meat. I'm so tired of using the term meat on the bone. They had almost 500 yards of offense today. That's impressive and a step forward against a Northwestern defense that hasn't tackled well, but they have been stout, especially in the passing game. Bryce finishes with 280 yards and the 2 interceptions. Those are those were backbreaking. I mean, those are not just freshman mistakes, 10, 11, 12 weeks into a season, they just can't happen. And again, you narrowly avoided it, but he still finds a way to go out there and puts a game-winning drive together, without Jordan Marshall on the field. It seems like maybe Bryson Kuzdal was a bit banged up as well. I think 3 straight drives after they scored their touchdown to go up by 2 scores. It went interception, turnover on down /fumble. You just can't. And I get they're undermanned. Justice Haynes probably done for the year. Jordan Marshall, that's a huge piece that you lose. But the self-inflicted mistakes hurt more than anything else, and they happen every single week. And now they're starting to happen with the quarterback. And that's your chief concern, is that you're already shooting yourself in the foot, and maybe your freshman, not so much in this game, but late in this game, hit a wall again.
I'll say this to try to be a little bit more optimistic. I liked that there was more balance in the offense and in the play calling. I liked that there was more first down pass and second down and long pass. I thought that there was more tight end targets in this game. I thought there could have been more, especially first half, second half. There's a tale of two halves there offensively, but in general, I thought the emergence, I mean, who doesn't love Marsh? As a receiver, we don't have Marsh, we lose this game. So, I mean, he's getting the game ball for me. But Bryce Underwood, for all intents and purposes, was having a good game. He made 5 really bad decisions. And he's a freshman. He's 18. And that's no longer an excuse when you're 10, 11 weeks in. And if I'm Chip Lindsey, there's a part of me that feels, I don't want to say good, but I'm glad that he went through and made some wrong reads and threw some picks, and we didn't have to lose a game over it. Because a lot of times those growing pains occur and you lose the game. So I guess if you want to try to be optimistic, I'll look at it from that lens. But in general, it's the pass pro. We weren't good in pass pro. Bryce had happy feet. That was early. That was often. And it's Northwestern's pass rush. We had a particular pass pro with a pulling guard that we continued to get beat on. Not to call him out, but Sprague had a hard day at the office. And the pass pro leads to Bryce being a little bit quicker with his reads and being a little bit off. And then Bryce decides to try to force it in the red zone, and we don't convert a good drive. A lot of those drives were good drives that don't turn into anything besides a turnover. So I thought weirdly that the offense took steps forward. It's just they took steps forward and then blew their feet off.
They took steps forward and then couldn't step hardly anymore because they didn't have any toes or most of their foot. And that's what's frustrating, is that, the yardage totals, things like those are the balance today. These are the types of things where all season long I've said I felt like they're really close to putting it all together. And scores can be deceptive. That happens from time to time. But when week in and week out, it's just kind of what you are. You're going to leave opportunities on the field. You're going to leave points on the board. You're not going to get every single. We're coming out of an era of such clinical execution that's not even the expectation to me anymore. It's just the self-inflicted wounds. And again, this is stuff that Bryce needs to go through. And again, you watch them every week, and the infrastructure is not where it needs to be. They found something in Andrew Marsh. That guy's a star, and no matter who you bring in next year, via the transfer portal, whatever it be, he's one of your top 2 wide receivers. You found something there. You know that your run game is going to be a non-negotiable strength, assuming your guys stay healthy. Savion Hyder's with them next year. I'm trying not to view it through next year because you got a game next week. You have a game 2 weeks from now. But I said on the show a couple weeks ago, that's how I've started to view it. And again, a game like this today reinforces that. And yet you sit there and feel like, gosh, if you can just stay out of your own way, there is a 40 burger from the clouds that you can drop on someone. There is, your best 4-quarter game hasn't been played yet. I actually kind of feel bad at this point. The best offensive game they've played is against my alma mater. I'm feeling a little picked on now because of that. But, overall, it is a step forward, but you do walk out of here with a bit of a bitter taste that gets salvaged at the end by Bryce Underwood leading, the first come-from-behind drive of his career. I do think that's significant. I do think that is important.
There's some things from this game that I feel like the team can take away and be positive. But overall, tomorrow's going to be a rough day in the film room. And I bet you they've had a lot of rough day in the film room. And the one thing that I can think I can say about this team that I do think is maybe part of their identity, that I do think is these guys are like Rocky Balboa a little bit in all the early parts of Rocky, where he just gets the hell kicked out of him. And they got to go to a meat locker and do some workouts, and all of a sudden, he comes out, and really the last fight, he doesn't actually dominate that fight either. He gets his ass kicked again for 8 out of the 9 rounds, and then just happens to win at the end of the game. If that's Sherrone Moore's identity and that's Michigan's identity, that's something that we've got to decide if we're good with, because to me, it kind of seems repetitive that these games, doesn't really matter who the opponent is, like, we're going to get it into the mud and we're going to drag and slug and try and drown you in 6 inches of water, and you're going to have to try to drown us back. And I feel like we've been building a team to be able to do more than that, yet we continue to just put that out there as the product.
Yeah, and here's the difference too in, do you beat yourself? Do you make mistakes? That's the identity of Michigan right now, is that they make those mistakes. It's okay to play ugly if you're Iowa and you don't turn over the football, and special teams wise, like you handle your business, but there's not poison enough there yet. Ramirez Harrison, as an alumni fan, champion circle member, and donor rooting for the fumble call to stay, for me to see him total alphabet soup here. Donor rooting for the fumble to stay, just for me to see him back in the game at a wide receiver. It is bad, Anthony. Yeah, that's in reference to Samaj Morgan. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. He can't play on special teams right now. There might be a role for him on offense, but that's an area where you just can't. You can't have it. You can't have those mistakes there, and he lost his job today.
And I've been vocal, and I think it's time to turn the page there. And if he gets opportunities on the offense, great.
No,
but there's other ways for him to contribute.
10 minutes, if that's okay.
And I feel like he's a guy that's in a slump. But if you got a guy that's in a slump and you got other guys in line that can help and positively impact your team, there's nothing to do but move on to those guys and give him chances in practice. If he's the resilient kid that I hear that he is, who knows? There's a chance, man. There's a chance people wrote off Donovan Edwards at one point. And Donovan
I'm not looking to get in trouble if I need to move
and make big impacts. So I'm not saying Samaj is going to have the same Donovan Edwards impact, but I do think he's a good kid. It feels like culturally he impacts the team in a positive way. So I hope he stays positive, and hopefully whoever gets an opportunity does something with it, because there's got to be a reason they continue to put Samaj out there.
Yeah, just a second, guys. Ryan, if you want to address this super chat or whatever it is, I have a situation here that needs tending to. So if you could stall me for a few,
sure.
Give me just a second.
No, I see Shane Johnson with a super chat for $1.99. He says, yep, at Ramez Herrick, horrific coaching staff. I don't know that we're going to just put this whole staff underneath the same blanket. And I can understand us wanting to do that, but I would say let's pump the brakes a little bit. There's been production, I would say, from last year to this year in certain rooms and certain positions. There's still 6 freshmen on that offense that are contributing, playing big minutes. We were down to our 3rd running back. You can really make the argument that Tony Alford deserves to go. You're really going to make that argument? I don't think that that's the case. And so if not him, then there's probably some other coaches on that staff too. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to, I think, some of the movement that you hear on the Twitter sphere that we should move forward with a different coach. We should consider different options. I think Sherrone Moore needs to do an end-of-year analysis and make some changes like Jim Harbaugh did, where he took maybe even a pay cut, did a redistribution of all the money that came in, and from there, evaluate where we get from our coaches. But I think next year is a big evaluation year for Sherrone Moore. For me, unless something dramatic happens here between now and the end of the season, you're not going to get me on the put Sherrone Moore's head on the guillotine. I'm just not there. I think that he's earned the right to finish this year out, see how things go. He's earned the right to try and tinker with different coaches at different positions and see where things go from there.
All is well here, by the way. I'm not getting kicked out, but not somewhere where I'm supposed to be at the moment. So we will probably make this a little bit shorter. Before we move to defense, any other thoughts on, I think what you addressed with the coaching staff, Sherrone Moore, I think it's all valid. We'll talk what has to happen after the season when it's time to talk about that. But I do want to move over to the defensive side of the ball here, where again, for most of the day, I mean, they kept you in the fight when things were kind of spiraling out of control. I think after both of those turnovers, well, there was the interception that led to the touchdown. Then another interception, you get off the field on a 3-and-out. You turn the ball over on 4th and 1, get another 3-and-out there. Um, Defense not as disruptive as you'd like to see today, but I thought overall pretty strong day at the office, and some young guys again making plays out there as well.
Overall, the defense. I mean, without the
Can I
defense,
cut it? Okay.
this defense doesn't win the game.
Okay,
Or
sounds
this
good.
team doesn't win the game without the defense. And if we lose Anthony, we lose Anthony. I'll talk here while we're talking about the defense, because honestly, like this Sherrone Moore identity that we're talking about and the Michigan identity, even with Jim Harbaugh.
Those are other media guys.
Even with Jim Harbaugh, sorry, Anthony, I think forgot his mic was on, but we're good now. But even with Jim Harbaugh and his staff, I mean, look at Mike McDonald and what he's doing in Seattle. Jesse Minter, another name that comes out of the defensive coordinator room. Like Michigan has had its staple B defense, even in the national championship team. So Wink Martindale, the defense, I think operationally are doing as much as they can. Today was another prime example. To go out there and respond to 5 turnovers is a huge challenge. Now, were there some weaknesses? Absolutely. Some of the things that I thought I saw was there were plays made downfield against coverage that wasn't bad coverage, but when you play against better quality receivers, not to poo-poo on Northwestern and their receivers, but if you are getting plays made on you by guys from Northwestern, when you get to the top level of the Big Ten, it's going to get a lot rougher. That was one of the things that was discouraging on an otherwise very bright day from the defense. Another thing to hit on the discouraging side before I give some flowers out, we've got to catch the ball in the secondary. Way too often are we getting pass breakups? Are we getting guys that have balls in their lap, and the turnover would just change the game's momentum if we would just secure the catch as a defender and give the offense the ball. And again, I think once for sure, maybe twice today, we had that happen. And, you know, defensively, if we're going to have our offense struggling the way they are and giving up 5 turnovers, man, would it have been nice to come away with 1 today. And that's the one thing missing from today's game. But outside of that, lots of good pressure. I thought well-timed pressure, good pressures in terms of blitzes, and then also pressure from 4-man games and 3-man games. Got off the field consistently on 3rd down. I don't know if we had that pulled up, but the 3rd down conversions I thought were really positive. Had huge stops on 3rd down when we needed them there in the 4th quarter. So Wink Martindale and the defense, I think, should feel pretty good about today's effort. But overall as a team, just so much more left to be desired, and it's so late in the season to get that going.
This time I did get kicked out, not out of the stadium, just away from where I was. Some very unclear messaging from the Northwestern athletic department on where I was allowed to be. So sorry about that, guys. Preston Johans for 199. He says 3 positives from this game. 1, no drops. Marsh is a freak, and matching the win total from last year. Obviously not where we want to be. Michigan last year loses this game. I totally agree. It is a positive. It's not something I'm going to sit here with pom-poms about. Last year was not a good season. It ended on a strong note. You know, you've lost 2 games this year that have looked pretty similar in the way that they happened. And a lot of your wins this year have looked pretty much the same way in most of them, outside of when CMU just got a wrecking ball taken to its program at the Big House. But it's progress. It's tangible progress. Is it enough progress for me to feel good about the rest of this year? And I say how I'm always talking about how I view this in the lens of next year. I'm not ready to say that yet. But at the end of the day, I think it is important for there are a lot of young guys on offense out there making plays. They're just, from an infrastructure perspective, I've said this before, they're not talented enough there. And on defense, they don't have enough disruptors. They don't have enough guys that are, you know, these unquestioned consistent playmakers, which is, you had them in droves, just whatever it was, 23 months ago, like Ryan said. I think that The one thing that couldn't happen today kind of did in terms of turnovers, where Michigan came into this game, I think +8 on the year in turnover margin. That's a top 10 mark in the country. Northwestern was 110th at -5 on the season. Northwestern was +5 today. Um, that's the football game. That and the missed kicks are the football games. So it's all woven in together when we talk about complementary football and things like that. You have a defensive game ball to give out?
Absolutely. I think Ernest Hausman is a guy that has played so consistently, and he was a guy that today, again, was huge impact on today's game and made a lot of plays that gets them behind the sticks. He's a guy that shows up on first and second down so often and gets you into a position where you're at 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and plays well on those downs too. So to me, Ernest Hausman was a game changer just with his consistency today.
I would agree with that one. I have to go back and look. But yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I agree with you on the offensive one as well with Andrew Marsh. Before we get into questions, because I do think we'll wrap here soon, we do want to shout out our friends over at Dollar Shave Club. By the looks of it, I probably, depending on who you are, I either look like the coolest guy in the world with a beard. We got two guys with beards here, or I look like a total slob. If you think I'm a slob, go to Dollar Shave Club. Grab your college handle today. You can pick out whatever you want from me. If you're a rival fan, sure, whatever it is, I'll use it. If Michigan beats Ohio State, I might shave this thing clean off. In fact, I'll make that bargain for you right now. If Michigan finds a way to beat Ohio State, when we do our Monday podcast, I will have a clean shaven face, and my wife will hate it, but that's what we're gonna do. And if it happens, it's gonna be because of our friends over at DollarShaveClub.com. So head on over there today, grab the Michigan Diamond Grip handle, and support another great sponsor of the Wolverine.com podcast. All right, we will take a couple questions here after the show. Whatever we have up, the queue is, I can't see the queue. I'm doing this on a different platform today. So our producer just wants to keep them rolling.
I got a question. Can I ask you a question, Anthony?
Sure.
What do you think about Sherrone more going forward on 4th and 1, where we could take a lead and we get stuffed? We have a weird exchange. We're in shotgun. We run the zone read. How do you feel about that? And what's your, in hindsight, thoughts about that play call?
I mean, hindsight always being 2020. I'm kicking there and taking the tangible chance at a lead. I know it's been windy here, but in that direction, Dominic Zavada would have had the wind at his back. He had the wind at his back with the 60-yarder that just went wide right. I'm kicking there. I'm taking a lead. I'm down. There is, if you're trying to seal a victory, I can get on board with going for it on 4th and 1, but you've already had these inconsistent offensive line situations throughout the year. Jordan Marshall leaves with an upper body injury. I'm just not. I'll say this. I'm kicking there. If you go for it on 4th and 1, I'm not handing it off to Bryson Kuzdal. I'm getting under center with my 6'5", 230-pound quarterback and getting a yard that way. But I see both sides of it. Michigan should be able to get a yard. I'm kicking and taking the lead there.
I very much have confusion about that play call, because to me it speaks to the identity or the lack of an identity or the confusion in identity with Sherrone Moore and this team. You have how many heavy packages with extra tackles, extra tight ends, Bredesen as a fullback. You have the goal line package, the under center package. But on a 4th and 1, you go with a zone read shotgun snap to seal the game or get into a better field goal position. I don't understand not securing the lead. And if you do,
and the handoff is up here, like it's at his neck.
To me, if that one play could define the whole game for me, that was it. You have that play to define the game, and somehow you win it. Happy day.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Again, just making it much more difficult on yourselves than it needs to be, which has been kind of the identity this year. I would say they will sell this as another gritty win. I just don't confuse grit and fight with poise, because I think they're two different things. Eric George wants to know, Where's the Buckeyes' big win that says they'll run through Michigan? Where's Michigan's big win that suggests they will compete with Ohio State? And I think they will. Um, Whatever that spread is, I would pick them to cover it. But there's Ohio State has been. We talked about being clinical. I mean, defensive. It's been a defensive masterclass for them. I think they've got some better athletes on that side of the ball than they even had last year. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but Matt Patricia is doing a hell of a job coaching that defense. And their offense has been a lot. There's a gear that they haven't reached yet that I think they can. And I think they might try to find in that game against Michigan in Ann Arbor, especially when you're watching film as a Buckeye head coach or your coaching staff, and you're watching a lot of these deep shots down the field where you're seeing the back of the Michigan defender's helmet. That's what I've seen. It doesn't. It has less to do with a win, um, and more to do with how the two teams look at the moment. Now, last year was incredible. Last year was also, I mean, it was historic in terms of it being an outlier of winning as that big as an underdog. So a lot of growth, lot of cleaning up to do. It's less about the win and more the body of work.
If I can, I want to say something
Go
real
ahead.
quick about the Ohio State game because I know we're going to talk about it a little bit. But I also think, in line with, I don't know if that was the point was being made, was that they haven't played anybody, but Ohio State has been flawless in their execution, and you got to give them all sorts of credit for that. And they have tremendous talent all over the place. But I do think it's important to realize that they are doing it against people that I don't think have much talent that can compare. And so you're going against teams that shut down because they're down by 2 scores, 3 scores. And so there's some really big poppy numbers. But I challenge Ohio State, and this is where I stand on it, is until you prove that you can be a physical team, that you can get away from the finesse as needed, that you can stand up after getting hit in the mouth or hit in the back. Julian Sand finishes every game with his jersey looking perfect. I don't even think they wash it when they're done. His jersey won't look like that when he comes to Ann Arbor. It never does. And so that's the thing that about Ohio State that kind of has me a little bit excited is I don't think that they have been challenged at all. They have been walking through very comfortably, and they're very healthy, and all those things should yield a tremendous outcome for them. But I'm not so sure that they're going to like what happens if they see a little bit of their own blood, and that's all I'm hoping is that we can draw it.
That's the recipe, right? It's the disruption. It's winning on both lines of scrimmage. There is value in learning to win ugly because if it gets to be that type of game, Michigan's not going to flinch. Michigan's not going to panic, but are they going to make enough plays? That's the question mark. Are they going to protect the football? That's a question mark. So I'm not saying it can't happen. Once last year happened, I'm never going to say it can't happen. But yeah, I mean, in the here and now, I'm 2 weeks out. That's how I feel about it. So your average fan says, why do they run their running backs into the ground? They love Jasper Parker. Yet he gets 1 carry today. I think Haynes had 25 carries. If Marshall had 10 before Haynes got hurt. A lot of it's because these guys can handle it. I don't have durability concerns. It's just a couple freak injuries. I don't know that Justice Haynes' workload is why he may have injured a bone in his foot. I don't think Jordan Marshall running the way he does, maybe that lends itself to injury because he does run so hard, but he landed on his shoulder today, it looked like. So I don't think that's a workload thing. It's just kind of a bad break. Ideally you have those guys healthy and maybe one guy's getting 15 carries, the other guy's getting 12, 13, whatever it is. Justice Haynes was clearly the better back, and you ride the hot hand. And then Jordan Marshall, the best back they have right now. You ride it as long as you can. I thought that 19 carries for him today, I thought it would have been much more than that, injury aside. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. We've seen Blake Corum handle that workload. We've seen Mullings handle that workload. Hassan Haskins handle that workload. So they recruit a certain type of guy and a certain type of back, and I think those guys can handle it.
All I'll say to that question is that I've made this argument before that as much as I liked back when we had Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall, it bothered me that it seemed like they gave it to them by the series versus using them together in the same series. If you have a 10, 12, 14 play series and you have two backs, I think it's important to rotate them in during that series versus saying, no, this is all your series and you're getting series two, which is kind of the platoon system that I thought we had early on, because I think the platoon system leads to maybe some overuse. When guys are more tired, I think they're more likely to get hurt. So I do think that there was some substitution opportunities that may have led to more longevity, but there's no way to prove that.
Yeah, and they've talked about these backs being cross-trained too. So it's not like switching them out in a series really takes away from the type of plays you can run, but that's the way they chose to do it. Morphy M says, am I the only person that has issues with the mechanics of Bryce's throwing? He's 6'5" and throws sidearm. It cuts off his arm a lot. I'd love to see him throw over the top more often. Yeah, you can tell he grew up in watching the Detroit Lions because there's a lot of Matthew Stafford sidearm to his game. I don't have a problem with his motion or anything like that. I think the ball comes off his hand pretty quickly. I think on some of these deep shots, he's got to put a little more air under it. JJ McCarthy had those same issues as a player a year older than Bryce is. So I'm not super concerned about Bryce or his mechanics or even the turnovers. I think he's a freshman quarterback playing November football right now. And I think the fruits of all of this, this will all bear fruit, I think, hopefully these last couple of weeks, but certainly next year when another year older, another year more physical, another year, hopefully better talent around him. So no, I mean, I don't look at Bryce's mechanics, except for when he gets the happy feet. That's a pass protection thing. And that's maybe sometimes he needs to calm himself down a little bit, but throwing motion, I don't have an issue with that.
I don't have an issue with his throwing motion. I think his miss around midfield and long or downfield is long or high, and the miss high in midfield is scary. He's had a lot of balls that get tipped up and become available for defenses, so that's something to clean up. But I will say that I thought he's developed at least a little bit in that he's gotten better with some of the shorter throws, some of the little flicky throws. I feel like that's something that early on he was throwing with very little or to no touch, and now there's some touch on those passes. So there's been minute development, but I guess I would call it organic development. Any football player who's in a college program for 2+ months taking QB1 reps should get better. So is it Michigan level better, or is it just the organic better? And that's where I don't know. I'm rubbing my hands. We'll see.
We'll see is the best way to put it. We'll take one more and close our show out today, if we have one more. Ryan Ram says, why not ever run Max Bredesen in short yardage? That's fair. I mean, he's a different type of fullback than your Khalid Hills and your Ben Masons of the world, but maybe they've tried and that's not something that's really in his repertoire.
I think we need him as a blocker. If we give the ball to Bredesen, then who's the lead blocker?
Oh, you're good.
Yep. And so that would be my question. What I think is something that we're missing, and I got to believe it's coming out for the Ohio State game, because I know he can catch passes. He's so unaccounted for in the pass game because he's so consistently close to the red. So there's so many opportunities. I think he used Bredesen on first down play action, second down play action, second and three, second. But you can get him in space and do something with him. But to me, I don't see him carrying the ball. I love one of my favorite running backs of all time is Mike Allstott from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I would love to see Bredesen tote the rock, but I don't think that that's going to help the team, benefit the team, advance the offense. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's a tremendous blocker. Keep using him that way and maybe find a way to catch defenses cheating, knowing that he's a blocker only.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. Michigan walks it off at Wrigley Field, 24-22 win to move to 8-2 on the season. 6-1 in the Big Ten. Sorry, math. I'm going to close it out because I don't want to get myself in any more trouble in one of my favorite places in the world. So thank you to producer Megan behind the scenes, Ryan Van Bergen for your time as always. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. And yeah, we will talk to you again next week's game at Maryland. I'm not going. I'll be at home for that. We'll see what the kickoff time looks like. I don't have any intel. Gut feeling 3:30 CBS. So could be an evening show. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll find out the kick time later on tonight. But for my producer Megan, for Ryan Van Bergen, I'm Anthony Broome, signing off from Wrigley Field in Chicago. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.